Welcome everyone to DT On Call, which is a conversation series by DialogTech. Today's a very exciting day. We have a special guest of Chris Pace, the Senior Director of Digital Marketing at Banner Health. So Chris joins us amidst a global pandemic and quite the active week in healthcare and surpassing a milestone and being on the front lines. So we really appreciate his time. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. And it has been a wild ride. And, I just want to give a quick shout out to all those that are on the front lines. I get the luxury of being at home and safe and, doing my part to stop the spread. But it's those on the front line, the nurses, the EVS workers, everybody in the hospital setting, our doctors, they are the heroes of 2020, and we wouldn't be at this momentous point without them. So thank you to everybody.
Agreed. I share that sentiment. I could not agree more. So my appreciation and gratitude goes to them as well. So thanks for that, for sharing that. We sit here amidst, what's been a long year, a very interesting year, a year of learning and growth and change. And so there's a lot to talk about that we could dive into as marketers, as digital marketers, as human beings. So we might cover all of it today. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of just kick us off with the mission of Banner, which is to make healthcare easier so life can get better. So that resonates, in normal times. But I think if we think about it now, I would love to just kind of hear your perspective on how that has continued to be your North Star as you've got new information coming your way and just really complex challenges that you're facing. What are the ways that has kind of manifested into your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a mission statement, we learned this in business school is, sort of the how a strategy is manifested. It's the simplest way to describe the purpose of an organization. And, Banner made a pretty bold shift. This predates my joining the company, but, it's something that's made a lot of our jobs as, digital marketers, strategists, consumer facing side of healthcare, a little bit easier. And it's because it is focused on the customer. And that is not normal for healthcare organizations to focus on the customer in a mission statement. It's typically about, especially if you have an academic focus like Banner does and many other health systems do, it's focused on, quality or outcomes or, being the healthcare provider of choice. It's about us. So the systems that I've worked with in the past have typically, used that focus of us. And, consumers are fickle, their attention spans are limited. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but there's so much noise and so much competition for attention that, if a health system is coming at you to try and attract you as a customer and everything's about the health system, that's kind of, for me, that's standoffish. I mean, imagine if, Amazon was all about, Amazon and Bezos and less about, hey, we're the largest store on earth and, whatever you need, we have. And we're going to make it super easy to get what you need. So that's kind of, what Banner took that bold approach with, is to really focus on why do we exist and how can we make things easier, because we know that the health system in general is pretty yucky. And we know that it's difficult to navigate and difficult to do things like pay your bill, find a doctor, kind of coordinate your care. And so it really helps frame all of our strategic focus around one pivotal thing, which is to make our customer their life a little bit easier so the rest of their life can be better and they can carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's like so simple, but yet so fundamental, the profound in the way that it really does shape so many different things. And so I mentioned to you before that I have been learning a lot from your marketing efforts and your team's marketing efforts, just to see the parallels of what I can kind of pick up along the way. And that's the kind of simplicity that I, admire and crave, because I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Now I know as a marketer what I need to focus on, because that is my North Star. So how has that, I think if we can think back to like February, March, and what chaos that was, just for many different reasons, but how, I think maybe initially coming out of the gate, the focus on virtual care may have guided a lot of your efforts from the digital world, but what has changed, since then, in terms of like marketing emphasis or priorities for your team? Because now that we're 6+ months or so away from that moment, what are the digital initiatives that are now, kind of not replacing, but have become more of the emphasis?
Yeah, so I'll go back in time a little bit further, because the story actually started in January of 2018. And our mission statement was launched, and then the strategy that came thereafter was really, it couldn't have been more important or timely, given that we were up against a pandemic we didn't know was coming 2 years later. So we launched what we call Digital Front Door. That was a big strategy. It was a 3-year initiative, and it was launched by the board back in 2017. Actually, 16 to 17 was the planning and the funding and all that. And then day one was 1/1/2018, and that's when we set our sights on solving friction points. So call in, click in, and walk in within our infrastructure. We're a big system, 30 plus hospitals, 6 states, 55,000 employees. So we've got a lot of touch points that consumers can engage with us. And what we found when we asked our customers, hey, what are the most difficult parts of the journey with Banner? It's pretty much the same at any health system. It's finding a doctor, it's scheduling with my doctor, it's getting communication from my doctor, it's billing, it's accessing my health record, and making it easy to find things on a website experience. So all that kind of cemented our foundation of a strategy for Digital Front Door. So over the course of 2018, 2019, we just started chipping away at this scorecard that we had built to say, these are the features we will deliver that address those pain points. And so we started marching. And I joined Banner in, right at the beginning of 2018. So my job was focused on the click-in side, the digital marketing acquisition. And so we took what was a fragmented web experience of, every hospital having its homepage, and it was on a content management system from 2002 that, was literally hard coded. So, scaling messaging was impossible. We have, 3.2 million people in our electronic medical record environment that we had no way of connecting with, because it was locked in this walled garden. And so we had to build a CRM. So we didn't have one. And our call center fields millions of calls a year, but they were on many different platforms, and they had many different analytics tools to gauge the efficacy of their agents and how effective they were at answering the phones. And so all of that had to be consolidated. And then we also had no online scheduling apparatus whatsoever. So we were way behind. And when the board saw how far behind we were, that was what lit a fire under them. They said, we have to do this, and we've got to do it fast. So getting forward to the early part of 2020, and we had launched a brand campaign back in 2018 we called Exhale, which is a manifestation of our mission, which is what is the net result when we make healthcare easy so life can be better? You breathe a sigh of relief, you exhale. So, however, with the respiratory illness that came along in 2020 and late 2019 that affected your lungs, using Exhale probably wasn't a right idea for a brand campaign. So we had to kind of step away from it. But what we did do, which was very interesting, is we had, because of who we were and what our mission statement was, and sort of the feedback that we got from focus groups, we sort of saw ourselves as, hey, we're the wise guide for our consumers. So we're approachable. We have empathy. Our goal is peace of mind by design, and therefore we show up that way. And with all these tools that we've built, that's how we manifest it. Well, pandemic comes along, and government is like low end of the spectrum on trust. So we have to show up. And so we have our own chief clinical officer, Margie Bessel. She is basically our in-house Dr. Fauci. She was the voice. She was the wise guide. She was the persona of the wise guide that got out in front of the community and sort of told the story of like, hey, we need to mask up. We need to social distance, kind of explain things in easy to understand terms. Well, all the while, we have this digital front door apparatus that we're building. And, had this happen in 2019 or 2018 or even worse, 2017, we would have had no way to scale messaging. Yeah. So, building all these appliances and connected data systems to allow messaging at scale allowed us to communicate with consumers in real time. Because in April, we had like 150 visitor restrictions changes. And if we were still on that hard-coded web platform, we'd still be working on it today, just to address April. So we were able to flex in real time with that. We were able to, since we had consolidated the call center queues down to, a single platform, and then also have a CRM system that the agents can see, we could, launch scripting in real time. So as those visitor restrictions publish to the website, we can also publish it in Salesforce. And the agent sees, hey, there were 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 changes today, and every next call they can provide the most recent information. So, we were lucky and also smart at the same time, which is a great combination to be lucky and smart. Yeah. Having this platform play out and also be prepared for a pandemic. Even though we didn't necessarily know we were doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's quite the sequence of events then that kind of all led to that coordinated effort, which, on the front line seems like you were prepared and you were ready to go as needed. But, I'm sure, and as you described, that was a multi-year effort that was strategic in nature, that was almost like predicting a little bit, and for different reasons, probably for lining up to a different strategy, but made you exactly poised to serve in that moment.